great to have you watching CNN10 today. I'm your host, Carl Azus. I'm happy to see you. First story we're explaining concerns a group of people who are said to be without a country. In the Southeast Asian nation of Myanmar, also known as Burma, there's a Muslim group called the Rohingya. They're a minority. Most of Myanmar is Buddhist. The nation's government does not allow Rohingyas to become citizens. It considers them to be Bangladeshi and wants them to live in neighboring Bangladesh. Bangladesh considers Rohingyas to be Burmese and wants them to live in Myanmar. So the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency classifies Rohingyas as stateless. It says in 2017, members of a Rohingya militant group attacked Burmese government security forces. The international community says that in response, Myanmar's military launched a violent campaign to rid the country of the Rohingya. The Burmese government says it's only targeted terrorists, not civilians. But hundreds of thousands of Rohingyas fled across the border to Bangladesh. And there, in refugee camps, the U.S. government worked with human rights investigators to interview Rohingyas. The results of those surveys were discussed this week in a report by the U.S. State Department. It says Myanmar's troops conducted a well-planned campaign of violence against Rohingyas, including murders, destruction of homes, and other violent acts. The U.S. labeled these as atrocities and repeated its call for the Burmese government to stop the violence, bring justice, and allow aid workers to get to the area. America also pledged more than $185 million in humanitarian aid to Muslims in the affected part of Myanmar, and it thanked Bangladesh for its help in caring for the refugees. Hawaii Volcanoes National Park is open once again, at least parts of it. It had been closed for 135 days following the latest eruption of the Kilauea volcano in early May. Dozens of fissures appeared in the Earth's surface. Lava shot up and flowed out over an eastern area of the Big Island. People were forced to evacuate, and hundreds of homes were destroyed. The state's economy was also affected. It's largely dependent on tourism, and the eruption kept many visitors away. Hawaii's Department of Agriculture says farmers endured millions in losses to their land and crops. And one interesting side effect of the eruption, lava flowing into the sea added new land, almost 700 acres to the Big Island. And Hawaii's largest freshwater lake, which once had a water depth of 200 feet, is now filled with lava. Visitors are streaming back into Volcanoes National Park to see how it has changed.
Our part.
Excited visitors lined up to learn more about Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Many had been here before, but heard about the changes since May. Rockfalls and powerful earthquakes closed the park for 134 days.
I can't even describe how excited we all are and how emotional this is right now.
It was a soft opening because so much remains closed for safety reasons, including Thurston Lava Tube and the most popular place to see Hale Ma'uma'u Crater and the Lava Lake, Jagger Museum.
Jagger Museum was the closest you could legally get to Halima'umau and to see the lava lake. But of course, that is now very unsafe to be there.
But that didn't stop hundreds of visitors who wanted to see the park as soon as possible.
To see how it's changed since last time I was here about a year and a half ago.
This man was visiting Oahu from Brazil and booked a flight when he heard about the reopening.
I'm going to begin to visit the national park. For me, see the volcanoes. My first time I will see the volcanoes.
Wow. It's grown so immensely. It's just gigantic.
Gwendolyn Hill has a tour company, bikevolcano.com. Since the eruption began, business has taken a huge hit. She's excited to show tourists the changes Monday when the bike tours start up again.
10-second trivia. Where would you find the tallest building in the world? Shanghai, China, Seoul, South Korea, Dubai, United Arab Emirates, or Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates? The current record holder for world's tallest building towers over Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Dubai's Burj Khalifa stands more than 2,716 feet tall. If you took one Empire State Building and stacked it on top of another, it'd still be shorter than the Burj Khalifa. Several buildings that are among the world's tallest skyscrapers are located in Dubai. You'd think its skyline would have looked like this long before 1979. But in that year, only a single 39-story building stood in Dubai, and some people wondered why it was there.
There are over 900 towers in Dubai, and every single one of them has been built in the last 40 years. Before that, Dubai looked like this. Then in 1979, this. a 39-story building in the middle of the Arabian desert. This is the Dubai World Trade Center.
It was the tallest building between Mumbai and Athens, including the whole of the Arab world. So that made an impact.
That's Guy Gilmar, the Trade Center's first employee, general manager, and director.
The Trade Center stood alone in the desert, and people were extremely puzzled why a high-rise building would be put up in open land. I think it's probably a world first.
It even got a visit from Queen Elizabeth on opening day.
She arrived by car, was introduced to everybody before going on into the building, including me, of course. And of course we flew the Royal Standard, which I think is quite unusual.
That's Gordon Heald. He designed and supervised the Trade Center, and here he is with the Queen at the inauguration, along with lead architect John Harris.
It made Dubai, didn't it? What you see now is this enormous metropolis of tall buildings. And it was the Trade Center that set it all going.
It may seem obvious now. Build a business center in one of the wealthiest nations on the planet and you'll attract global companies. But in 1970s Dubai, this was something new. Next to Gordon in this picture is Sheikh Rashid bin Saeed Al Maktoum, the ruler of Dubai and the prime minister of the newly formed United Arab Emirates. It was his idea to build the skyscraper trade center in the first place. For centuries, Dubai's main industry was pearl harvesting. But in the 1930s, the pearl industry collapsed due to the Great Depression and the invention of the synthetic pearl. But a few decades later, Dubai had another largely untapped resource waiting to flow into the market. In 1966, Dubai found oil, and estimates show that the population grew by 1,000% over the next 40 years. By 1991, black gold accounted for around 50% of Dubai's GDP, creating a rich environment for new business. Sheikh Rashid used the proceeds of Dubai's oil to develop the city's infrastructure, including the trade center.
What he really wanted to do was to make a statement that the Dubai side was in business, and also a signal to Abu Dhabi that, we are your rivals and we are really coming after you.
Building the first skyscraper in a nation isn't all straightforward, though. For one, the sand in the desert wasn't right for the cement.
We actually had to use sand from the beach in its place, which seems a rather strange thing to have to do in a desert.
As nobody had seen such a tall building before, rumors were quick to spread.
There were lines of lampposts not far away, which were not quite vertical. And I think that's what started the rumor that the tower was actually leaning.
And if that wasn't enough, when they reached the 10th floor of the Trade Center, Sheikh Rashid decided he wanted it taller, so demanded extra floors to be put on. Originally, it was designed with 33, then they increased it to 39. Today, the 1.3 million square foot tower is home to 500 events a year, attracting 3 million people from 160 countries.
I think that the element of skepticism about why is so much money being spent on this immense tower and the surrounding buildings quickly evaporated, because the niche that we were able to exploit was to establish it and establish Dubai as the premier business address in the Middle East.
Wildlife photographers often capture images that we'd rate 10 out of 10, and this is no exception. It's a moose appearing to stick out its tongue at the camera. Now maybe you just think this was a coincidence, a candid shot of an amused moose, until you see the other one. Yeah, he's laughing it off. Same moose, same spot, same photographer from the US National Park Service. Is this irrefutable proof that moose have a sense of humor? It's certainly something to muse over. We don't know what made him so enthusiastic. Maybe he's perpetually amused. Maybe that's the moose he's smiled in days. We may never know the antler, but it sure is fun making the most of it on CNN10. I'm Carl Amoose.